Good morning. We'll call to order the meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. Ms. Quigley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. First item is to approve your agenda. Your agenda is in order and ready for your approval.
Motion to approve.
Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your next item is to receive your general manager's report, and we do have a few items. First item is our superstar of the quarter. We like to recognize an employee who's done outstanding work on a quarterly basis, and we'd like to announce that Anthony Harvey has managed to save the RTC nearly $80,000 in his position as equipment technician for the transit division. Is Anthony here? You get to go, yeah, the board wants to see you and talk to you. Anthony has consistently demonstrated his dependability in making appropriate repairs to communications equipment and surveillance systems on our fixed route and paratransit vehicles. He removed, cleaned, inspected, and tested equipment on recently decommissioned vehicles so they could be added to our spare parts inventory, allowing RTC to improve services with money saved. Anthony is a highly valued member of the Transit Technical Equipment Team and the RTC, and we want to say thank you for your innovative approaches to saving us money.
Right this way, Emery.
You works? Absolutely. Oh, wow. You guys caught me by surprise here. I'd like to thank John, Brent, Tony, our senior techs. They show us all how to lead by example, their willingness to share their experience and to teach. And I really appreciate the recognition. Thank you.
All right, stay up there for just a minute, if you would, board. Next, I'd like to recognize a superstar in her own right. Zoe Coleman from our Streets and Highways Division is our numbers girl, and she's retiring on March 3rd. She's been instrumental in tracking data and managing information for our Streets and Highways programs. She translates really complex numbers into bite-sized pieces of information for all of us, including us sitting here, to understand. Zoe, can you come down? I know she hates this. She hates this, but she has to come down.
This is awesome.
Strong. Hey, Zoe, stay up there. I want to share with you some numbers as it relates to Zoe, because she is our numbers person. She's served the RTC for 16 years, and she's been with Nevada Public Service for 25 years. She's helped the RTC and our partner entities create 586 transportation projects using motor vehicle fuel tax, Question 10, Senate Bill 5, and most recently, FRI funds. She's processed more than 4,000 project-related agenda items over the course of 193 executive advisory committees and RTC agendas. She's been recognized as Superstar of the Quarter on 3 separate occasions. Even more importantly, Zoe's been instrumental in forging relationships with public works directors and their staff. She has shown unflagging devotion and dedication to the RTC, our partners, and the public. She is constantly sought out for her historical knowledge on all things RTC. She knows where the bodies are buried. Her experience is irreplaceable, and while we're sorry to see her go, we wish her nothing but the best on the next chapter of her life. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's give a round of applause for Zoe Coleman.
You didn't tell me you had my daughter come. I'm glad you're here. Okay, I'm going to try this. In my first 10 years with the county, I held 7 different positions. I'd conquer the challenges of the job, I'd get bored, I'd get in trouble. And I'd start looking for something new. Then I came to the RTC, and I've sat at the same desk for 16 years. I still got in trouble, go figure, but I never got bored. My position has been unique in that I dealt with almost every department in the agency, thousands of invoices, hundreds of agendas, transit issues, public inquiries, and maps. Lots and lots of maps. There were also the volunteer opportunities. I've loaded buses for NASCAR, cut oranges for bike races, and even helped put bus stop signs during service changes. Thanks, Carl. I'm shaking, I'm sorry. All of which afforded me the chance to work with and get to know some amazing individuals. I've also had the good fortune to work for a leadership team who allowed me to think outside of the box and put up with and sometimes actually embraced my crazy ideas. My position was also special in that not only did I have the RTC, I had my entities. And yes, I consider you my entities. The employees of the Public Works Departments of Clark County, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, Boulder City, Mesquite, and NDOT are also my family. We are a team, and through working group meetings, the infamous CIP meetings, and multitude of phone calls, we were able to fund and construct some very impressive projects. I know of no other group of individuals who are more dedicated to the improvement of Southern Nevada than you. You have my utmost respect and admiration for the work that you do, and I thank you all for allowing me to be a part of it. How many people can say that they actually looked forward to going to work every day? I feel truly blessed. Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Yay.
I'm gonna miss you all.
You did good, baby. One more time, one more time.
Thank you for your wonderful.
I'm gonna let everybody before we leave.
Oh, wait, no. One more. I have one more. We have one more.
And your daughter's here? My daughter's here. Stand up, please. Fantastic. Do we have any Yankee fans in the house? Yes or no? Yes. Raise your hand. Do you have?
Uh-oh.
Do you have any agenda items today? Zoe, wear that Red Sox proudly. You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on the GM report is a mechanic recognition for our contractor Keolis. We have Mr. Wesley Brown. He successfully transitioned his maintenance career from the automotive industry to the transit industry when the opportunity arose at Sunset Maintenance Facility. Do we have Wesley here with us? Yes. Come on down. He set a personal goal to become a powertrain technician and 2 years later exceeded all requirements during the in-house testing process, securing an open position within the specialty group. In addition to his professional career, Wesley is a full-time student pursuing a degree in diesel technology at the College of Southern Nevada. Yay. His Keolis colleagues say that his positive attitude and team-oriented approach make him a pleasure to work with. So please join me in recognizing Wesley Brown.
First off, I'd like to thank my mother, Carol Lohman. That's my mom right there. She is celebrating her 25th anniversary at NV Energy today. So I'd like to give her a round of applause. 25 years at NV Energy and serving all of you. That's today. And Thank you to my wife, Lauren, who's back there recording me and gonna hold this as evidence later. I'd like to thank my maintenance director right here for putting me up for this prestigious award. I'd like to thank all of you for having me up here, and I wouldn't be here without all the guys in the shop that believed in me and helped the youngest guy get where he wants to go in life, and I'm still climbing. You guys are gonna see me right there with this guy right here one of these days. That's my maintenance director, and ma'am, so God willing, I'll be right where you are one
All
day.
right.
I'm going for it. So, thanks for having me up here.
Congratulations.
Oh, box two.
Keep up the great work.
I love it. Thank you, Wesley. Yeah, that's great. Now we have Raymond Hess, our Director of Planning Services. He's here to give you an update on Southern Nevada Strong.
Good morning, Raymond Hess, RTC staff. Mr. Chair, members of the board, you may recall that back in November we committed to come back before you quarterly to give you an update on Southern Nevada Strong. And so here we are today to not only talk about what we've been doing as the RTC, as core administrator, but to also showcase some of the good work that's being done by our regional partners, which is why we have Shane Ammerman up here, and we'll let him talk about some of the exciting things they're doing in just a moment. So we've been busy over the last 3 months. Back in December, we had Robert Groh, who's the CEO and president of Envision Utah, come out. Envision Utah is often cited as a leader in regional collaboration and regional planning. And he really energized both community leaders and business leaders about Southern Nevada Strong and really its implementation. And so we want to capitalize on that and kind of take that energy and move it forward. So that was a very positive event. With the help of our consultant, we've reached out and met with dozens of our community partners to really assess where we're at with implementation and figure out how we can best support that. So we're doing a lot of the background research to figure out how, as the core administrator, we can advance Southern Nevada Strong moving forward. Under the leadership of Chairwoman March and Vice Chair Jen Kiliani, the Southern Nevada Strong Steering Committee is running on all cylinders. We've had meetings in October, November, and January. We've approved a communications plan as well as a public engagement plan. We're discussing how to establish performance measures related to Southern Nevada Strong and how we can track the progress of that moving forward. Another thing that we're really focused on is using the steering committee as a learning lab. We want to do deep dives into specific topics that the steering committee and all their wisdom can help advance. And so what we're focusing on right now is the opportunity sites. So you may recall there are 4 opportunity sites. There's Maryland Parkway, there's downtown North Las Vegas, there's Boulder Highway, and the Las Vegas Medical District. And so in November, we used that opportunity to do the deep dive on Maryland Parkway. And so the RTC gave an update on where we're at in the environmental process to look at higher order transit along Maryland Parkway, since that's going to be a major component of that corridor moving forward. But then we also heard from Clark County and some of the exciting initiatives they have underway related to that as well. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Shane Ammerman, who will give an overview of some of those initiatives.
Thank you, Chair, board members. Shane Ammerman with Clark County Comprehensive Planning Department. Chris G's probably heard this about 5-6 times. I was in her office yesterday trying to delegate up, see if she wanted to do it for me, but no go. We've gone through this process. We started it earlier last year. We've gone through about 2 open houses on open houses that RTC has gone out and done for their project down on Maryland Parkway as well. We've last month went to the Maryland Parkway Owners Coalition meeting at the hospital. So we've at the point of where we've taken all this information from these open houses, and we're at the point now where we can move forward, and we're going to kind of focus down on a working group that's with the Maryland Parkway Owners Group as well. So we're at that point we're going to be working with the city of Las Vegas. We've reached out to their departments and making sure that when we go through this process that we end up with a seamless overlay as we move through the county and through the city, because as we know it goes through both those jurisdictions. Also, Raymond had mentioned the work for S&S. On the left of your screen there, you'll see the actions in phases for the Maryland Parkway Implementation Strategy Report. And on the right-hand side are the basic design components that we've kind of come up with. And we wanted to make sure that we captured, obviously what was done with S&S, so we've done that little correlation there and make sure that, we achieve those goals of SNS. We researched probably a dozen cities. Tempe was one of them. We looked at Portland, Salt Lake as well. Tempe, I don't know if you're all familiar with Mill Avenue, which is adjacent to Arizona State University, and that is something that we would envision that could happen down along UNLV. And as I stated, along with looking at the cities, we've also went to a few seminars, looked up a few publications, and we've come up with about 30 basic design components, and here's just kind of an example of those design components. As you can see on there, it talks about density. We're looking at 25 dwelling units to 60 dwelling units per acre, a fine grained mix of land uses. So we've come up with about these 30 different components that we feel that are essential for the design of the street and would help that relationship with the design of the street and also those uses along that street. And did I lose my one? Oh, I had one more slide in there that talked about a couple other things that are going on for Maryland Parkways. We've just started the arts. We have a grant through
National Endowment for the
yes, thanks. About, I think it was 50,000 for, that just kicked off, I think it was last week they had the open house, so that's going to go ahead and go through and look at what we can do along Maryland Parkway. I know we've already kind of done the utility boxes along there too, but they're going to look at some other things that can be done as far as public art. And then we've also just kicked off the Brownsfield grant. That'll be going to the Board of County Commissioners next Tuesday for the hiring of the consultant. So that'll be starting as well. And that way we can go through the corridor and kind of give an assessment of those parcels and the properties along there and identify any issues that may be along the corridor and hopefully work with the owners and see if we can get them if they want to clean up their property. So at some point in time, if what we hope happens, if things take off, that we can have like a clean slate or a clean bill of health for the corridor. So with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Comments or questions, Councilwoman?
Thank you very much for this update and for the Southern Nevada Strong update. I think it's valuable that the whole commission and the community hears about the good work that's going on for Southern Nevada Strong. And it's so important for folks to remember that our citizens lead regional lives. They may live in one community, but they work in another community. And so these folks are passing through our community, and maybe we don't even realize how many are actually passing back and forth. And I think it's important that you're coming forward and having this conversation with us, letting us know the things that are going on across Southern Nevada to help us be better regional partners and better neighbors with one another. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for trying to get me to do your job.
It just didn't work.
No, that was assertive on your part. That was a very good thing. That's what we encourage that in employees. I also wanted to mention, Bunnyfish is who they've selected that we had last Wednesday, and so they will be conducting the outreach for the public art component. And then tonight, Art Prize is coming to Winchester from 6 to 8, so I'd invite people to come out. That's a big issue that's happening around the United States, and so just making an offer, an invitation for folks. It's at Winchester Cultural Center over on McLeod. So that's just another component that helps us look, as the councilwoman said, most of us are in each other's neighborhoods fairly regularly, and we forget that we're still small in that way. And so there are commonalities. I mean, like with the city of Las Vegas just getting recognized with its STAR program, and Henderson led the way. Now that gives us opportunities in the other jurisdictions to be able to do some more of that. So this is not just, we actually have a historical component. Clay T. White from UNLV was there, so we're going to start looking at the older neighborhoods, the old Paradise Palms, and those to make sure that we're not losing what little bit of history we still have, even as we try to infill. It really is a good infill project, actually, along that whole corridor. So I think it's exciting, and I think the public has been very, very engaged. So I want to thank the staff and the steering committee chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Raymond.
Thank you.
All right. That concludes your general manager's report. Next on the agenda is item number 3, which is to receive the Nevada Department of Transportation Director's Report.
Thank you, Tina. Mr. Chairman and board members, I wanted to also add some comments about Zoe's retirement and just say we've appreciated the years of assistance to NDOT. Just to mention one of the things that how Zoe impacted our department was I had a discussion with her about frustration over how long it took to process agreements. And she said, well, here's something that we use, a product, a software product that allows for electronic signatures. We talked about it with legal, we talked about it with our administrative staff that process the agreements, and they latched onto that idea, and now we use that not only for the external agreements, but for internal document approvals too at our department, and it's really made us more efficient. And that's just one little piece of how she affected our agency, and just she was so impressive, I think, that she always probably made it tough for our financial staff to keep up with her, but she's always been someone that I've looked up to, and just really appreciate her years of service and assistance to NDOT as well. So I wanted
Thank
to
you for sharing
pass
that.
that on.
She's tenacious with a great personality.
Looking at we're going to be visiting our delegation in Congress at the end of this month, and I appreciate Mayor Goodman. You had gone there last month, I believe, and talked with our delegation. We're going to be meeting with Senator Reed about your concerns with I-15 and the lack of widening projects and alternatives from Barstow to Las Vegas, particularly on the California side of that portion. So we'll talk about that, and at the same time, I think that the Caltrans director will be in Washington, D.C. visiting his delegation. So it's an annual meeting that the state DOTs get together with their delegations, but it'll give me an opportunity to talk to him face-to-face about those concerns, and along with Senator Reed. And also appreciate Mayor Goodman's opportunity to have a local TV show with Meet the Mayor that's going to air on Monday, putting a plug with that. But it was a good opportunity for me to talk about Project Neon, and it's a great project, our biggest public works project ever for transportation for the state. And we're going to have a public information office opening up near Wholesome Lofts in early March, and we're going to staff that office 6 days a week. So allow those people that maybe have no opportunity during the work week to get down there to ask questions. Obviously, we'll have other means, but they'll be able to talk to a person about their issues and concerns with the project and impacts. Face-to-face is always something that people appreciate, as well as being able to connect through other websites and such. A groundbreaking event is planned for that project that we're coordinating with the City of Las Vegas and RTC for April 7th, and also we're going to have a public information meeting on May 12th at the historic 5th Street School in downtown. Finally, I wanted to give an update on the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality. It's CMAQ program. It's a federally funded program that looks at certain specific air pollutants and trying to mitigate those in areas where they're not meeting the goals of improving air quality. And Clark County obviously is one area, and Reno, the Washoe County area, is the other area where those funds can be used. So historically, it's been split about 64% Clark and 36% Washoe, and not been revised as far as that distribution formula since 1999 by the state. So NDOT has been looking at that change, trying to keep it simple so our staff can track it easily, but we're proposing in a letter to Tina and to her counterpart up north in Washoe County for an 80-20 split. And because those RTCs have been dependent on that money in their current fiscal plan, we're proposing to make this change in 2 years. That'll give those entities enough time to anticipate that and plan accordingly. But we think that this was a good middle ground. I think that it's something that works for NDOT, and hopefully it will work for the RTC of Southern Nevada. But we're going to be sending a letter to ask for that type of input. And that concludes my report. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rudy. Mayor Goodman, and then Commissioner.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Rudy. Knowing that you're going back to Washington, and Ms. Quigley and I have spoken about this, as well as with the Council of Mayors that we now have, 5 mayors together, as a voice. As we suffer through the changes in ozone requirements and control, and we've done such a great job here in Southern Nevada. I mean, really impressive. When you are back there to continue on the conversation of how can we be punished for air and smog and fire polluted air coming in from California to put us in a position to lose funding for further transportation grants or whatever. If you could just make that very loud and clear, and I know the 5 mayors have talked together about this and would be willing to sign a letter, or if it comes through the RTC, really and truly, I mean, our hands are tied. We've made such great strides. So just to encourage you when you're back in Washington and you're with Caltrans and you're with all of our elected officials, to please make an effort on that, because unless we built a wall up 5,000 miles into the sky, we are going to continue to suffer with the pollutants coming in from California.
I'll definitely follow up with that, Mayor, on the ozone issue with EPA and
And
how
I'll
it affects us.
just mention at your direction, I did have a conversation with Chairman Brown about that, and he is completely supportive of the RTC collectively submitting letters of encouragement and support too.
So would you, for all of us, and we only have one mayor but we have Mayor
Yes.
Pro Tem March here, so and
Yeah,
she's just
we'll have her.
more beautiful.
Absolutely,
So-
we can work on that.
And talented, but we'd be happy to join in with a letter if that would help.
Question. Rudy, remind me, as we have our state highways, which are Charleston and Nellis, et cetera, when we're doing remodels or upgrades, I know you've got some projects, RTC has some projects, county. Who has the final say on what lane closures will be implemented?
So we've tended to work collaboratively. We don't want to be, we control the roads, but we have both the permitting to developers that are,
Right.
or utility companies, and then we do our own projects, and sometimes local public work agency will do work on our state route. But we try to keep those allowable operating times the same, and in some cases, we need to be more strict on not allowing daytime work, for instance. But usually it's a give and take, and we have a discussion with the permittee, which is, as I said, utility companies or developers, and what's reasonable, but also considerate of what the public is exposed to as far as disruption on their traffic.
Thank you, that helps, because I know that in a couple instances, for example, our Public Works has said, no, to the contractor, you must leave X number of lanes open, and these are the hours, and then they kind of sometimes run to somebody else, including NDOT or wherever, and get them to close more lanes, which then causes backups on many of our arterials. So I would just hope that if a local government says, no, we know the flow of traffic here, we know that there's 3 other projects going on, and this is the road closures that we've recommended, that we not be superseded. And so maybe that's just something.
I'll definitely take that back
Okay.
to our local staff
Okay.
that issue those permits and have those discussions.
And the second thing would be, I just made my notes to myself, and now I disappeared. Oh, that's for another thing. We're putting together a work group on Boulder, just to kind of have our public works staff talk about design. So I think I'm going to be inviting Tracy for that part of it, because there's some things we could all do together quicker, is my understanding. And so I want to just thank you for your staff participating in that, as we try to get some of the safety issues that we can do now, and then look at the narrowing of Boulder. But it's really we were talking today, it's a perfect complete street boulevard kind of thing that we can change out there, I think, in the long run, so.
Yes, I appreciate that. We've looked at the traffic counts, and we think it's a great candidate for complete street. And there might be some short-term improvements,
Right.
restriping that we could do now.
Yeah, I
And
was
then look at
across
the bigger development
yesterday.
later.
We have the what do they call that, where the pedestrians can cross and have a safe spot like they do at UNLV and that. But there was one right across from the cannery, and there's a crosswalk, but there's no flashing, there's no nothing, and I thought this guy was going to get killed. I mean, he was properly going through, but there was nothing to signalize the cars coming down. So I think those are some of the things we can do a little bit faster rather than
Yes, definitely.
otherwise.
We are working on
Yeah,
that flasher
okay,
at that
great,
location.
thank you.
Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you. And Rudy, I'd like to compliment your staff for coordinating not only the training for naturally occurring asbestos and for the tortoise training, and then arranging for tours, as long as folks complete the training, to be able to go out and see the route of the I-11. I think the progress is incredible that's being made out there, and I think we're looking at 2017, 2018 completion, and it's exciting to see the progress being made. And I'd encourage my peers on the commission to take advantage of an opportunity to have the training and then take the tour. It's pretty impressive.
Thank you. I'm even one of those that needs to take the tour because it's been a while since I've visited the project, so.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, your next agenda item is item number 4, is to conduct your first citizens participation period.
This is the first time set aside for public comment. Those wishing to speak to the board on a posted agenda item, now is your opportunity. No cards. Seeing and hearing no one, we'll close this portion of public comment.
Next on your agenda is your consent agenda, which is made up of items 5 through 60 and may be taken in one motion.
Motion on the floor, but a comment from Commissioner G.
Item 6, I just need to understand, dustpan, I neglected to ask about this, a dustpan effect, and it's where, I guess, sidewalks or curb and gutter exist, and a driveway has to go in. I'm looking at the
this
drawings, I'm
was-
just trying to understand what it actually does.
Mike Hand, RTC. This was a request from City of North Las Vegas to solve an issue they had with some developer plans already had been approved with an older standard.
Okay.
And as it indicates in the background, the reintroduction of the dustpan driveway into the standard drawings is appropriate with the clarification that it cannot be used when the sidewalk is attached at the back of curb, and then it cannot be used as part of a pedestrian access route since the cross slope of the driveway exceeds what is allowable under ADA. So
Okay.
this enabled them, when the sidewalk was offset, it worked and enabled them to get an ADA compliant transition. And it worked for the developers, and North Las Vegas
Okay.
was okay with it.
So you're adding that back in as a standard only in North Las Vegas, or does it affect the other jurisdictions, and is it only to cure that problem rather than a go for it? Because I don't think you want to get into new design
Yeah.
doing that.
So
And I
it's,
apologize, Mr.
it's the two notes on the clarification on the drawing say that number 3 note is standard drawing 223 shall not be allowed when the sidewalk is attached to the curb. And number 4 is the dustpan driveway cannot be a part of the pedestrian access route since the depressed area is not compliant with ADAG. So it fits those situations where it is compliant, and that was the situation they were trying to deal with
Okay, so
specifically.
it's not expansive to anybody else, and it
Correct.
doesn't allow for them to no longer design appropriately. So anybody engineering stuff doesn't get to come in and go, oh, hey, they let them do a dustpan in North Las Vegas, let's design that way.
That's correct. It's
Okay.
just limited by those last two notes
Okay.
to a specific application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Mayor Goodman?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to our general manager and Princess. Agenda item 46 in the consent agenda.
Yes.
Apropos of the conversation with Mr. Montalban about going back to Washington, that we're going to make an effort to comply, but that really needs to be addressed, the pollution coming in from California.
Sure.
It should not jeopardize. And so I don't know in voting, I mean, approving this, what we're approving that we're going to try to meet the standards that are set, even though we can't control what's coming in to change it for us?
I am going to ask our Director of Planning, Raymond Hess, to come in and address that issue. He's been working with the Department of Air Quality on our response and collaboratively as a region, our position.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you to the mayor. So what's included in your packet is really just informational item. It's a memo that was circulated by Department of Air Quality, Clark County Department of Air Quality. We are working with them on how to make sure that we can ensure that no transportation projects are jeopardized as a result of the new ozone standard. All indications are we will be designated as non-attainment for the new ozone standard because we currently are at about 76 parts per billion. The new standard is at 70 parts per billion. However, there is a time period in which we can demonstrate conformity to that new standard, and so we're working very closely with Department of Air Quality on the strategies to make sure that nothing is jeopardized. And then at Mr. Bauer's request, we actually are going to be addressing the Public Works Directors as well at their next Public Works Directors meeting, which I believe is in March. So we're going to be discussing that specifically as well.
And if I might, Mr. Chairman, through you, can we have a follow-up report before everything is in solid cement? Because, I mean, I really think we are in a position to be jeopardizing ourselves as far as getting those funds if, in fact, there is another fire, which there will be in Southern California area, and how do we control that? So,
Sure.
please.
Point well taken, and that's why we want to try to keep you informed on this issue by including these kind of updates in the packet, so we'll continue to do so. Yes.
Okay.
That said, we could come back with a formal presentation. Raymond, what month would be appropriate for?
We could probably do it in April after we meet with the Public Works directors and have a chance to discuss it with them. We've invited Department of Air Quality to that meeting as well, so then that way we can just kind of huddle up and talk about what our strategy is.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
We'll add it to our April agenda.
Well, here's one other thing we ought to be talking about. Mayor's absolutely correct about California, but in Nevada, our state law still does not require smog checks except only in Clark County and only in Washoe County. Even Tahoe doesn't have to, even Mount Charleston doesn't have to. So they seem to think that the smog knows to stop at Nye County. So I think we have an agenda that's more, it's not just California. We have to do our own homework in our own state to require smog checks. So I tried that in the 90s. It's time to start again. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Please, Councilwoman.
Through you to Carolyn, were you concerned if we voted on this today, we are voting on saying we're going to be able to do such and such, and though we can't because of the smog from Nye County to California? So are you suggesting that perhaps we hold that? I wasn't quite sure what you thought would be the appropriate thing to do.
That was an informational item?
Just informational. Oh, okay. Sorry.
And just a clarification, on item number 58, donation to City Fire, which is wonderful that they'll use the outdated vehicles for training, but the backup has 4 vehicles listed. The request is for 1. So are we giving 4, or are we giving 1?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm MJ Maynard, our Deputy General Manager over Transit, is going to do some quick research for you.
Then she can do that research. It's not going to change my vote.
Okay.
So there is a motion on the floor to approve the consent. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Your next item, concludes your consent agenda. Your next item is item number 61, which is to receive a report on the Community Mobility Study for Central Las Vegas, Phase 2. And we have Raymond Hess, again, our planning director, to introduce that item.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So just to give you a little overview of what the study is, as you may recall, every year we develop a document called the Unified Planning Work Program. Within this document, we identify studies that we will conduct, oftentimes in partnership with the local jurisdictions, using federal planning dollars. So the UPWP, the Unified Planning Work Program, supports staff time as well as these special studies. So this is phase 2 of a study that we conducted a couple years ago. The study was done by Kimley Horn and Associates and was a Geographic Information System, or GIS level analysis. So they did a lot of computer analysis of looking at how to best connect bicycling, walking, transit options to the Bonneville Transit Center within a 3-mile radius. So this speaks to a lot of the first mile, last mile discussion, giving people the opportunity to get to transit safely and effectively. And so we want to do a phase 2 approach because while phase 1 was very informative and very helpful, we wanted to kind of go out and field check the results and make sure that the results that came out of that study made sense in the real world. And so we hired Wood Rogers to do that. And they went through the phase 1 study and did a lot of field reconnaissance, went out into the field and looked at things and came up with very concrete recommendations. So phase 1 really identified the where. Phase 2 of the study really identifies the how as well as how much and kind of some scheduling as well. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Brian Gant with Wood Rogers, the consultant on the study, for him to give an overview of some of the study findings.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Raymond. Brian Gant, Wood Rogers. As Raymond mentioned, this was the second of a 2-phased approach. We carried over from the first phase the overall structure of looking at various aspects of active modes of transportation. Specifically, we broke it down into elementary school walking routes, an area that's called mobility analysis zones, and I'll define that in a minute, boundary analysis, and then looking at transit amenities. Now, throughout this phase 2 process, and I'm sure even the phase 1, we worked with an active stakeholder working group of the local agencies and other concerned participants to help guide and inform the study along the way. So looking at the 4 different analysis areas, the first being the elementary school walking routes, they're within the overall study area, which is defined as a 3-mile radius around the Bonneville Transit Center. There are 33 elementary schools that are affected and 118 individual locations that we looked at for improvements to improve student walking routes. The type of things we're looking at are improved crossings, bulb outs, protected crossings, crosswalks, that type of thing. So the results of our analysis came up with several hundred spot locations for those type of improvements. Again, bulb outs, crosswalks, ADA improvements, that type of thing, along with over 2,000 linear or 20,000 linear feet of sidewalk installations. There were a lot of locations out there where students were walking without any sidewalks at all. And we also identified 11 locations for protected crossings of kind of your more major roadways. So the second area we looked at was called mobility analysis zones. And to break it down, it's kind of just a mini corridor or a mini transportation corridor. Phase 1 looked at 17 or identified 17 different MAZ locations or corridor locations. In our phase 2, we boiled that down to 10 to focus on for short-term and long-term improvements. I won't go through all of it, but I'll just give you a sampling of the type of things that we looked at. One of the MAZs was Stewart Avenue from Maine all the way to Mojave. If you look currently out there, you have 4 lanes of traffic and on-street parking, and volumes are relatively low out there. So for a segment of that, say Las Vegas Boulevard to Bruce, we recommended doing complete streets improvements to restripe that down to 1 lane in either direction because the volumes allow it. You can get buffered bike lanes in both directions and maintain your on-street parking through there. So that's an example of a short-term MAZ recommendation. And then an example of a long-term recommendation, again, in this same footprint, if you do reduce your overall through lanes, it does open up other opportunities, for instance, a roundabout at Stewart Avenue and 7th Street. Now, we picked that partly because that also coincides with your gateway entrance zone into the downtown area, kind of complements and works hand in hand with what you have going on Fremont Street. So if we sum up everything we looked at from the mobility analysis zones, we had a little bit over $5 million worth of recommendations in there for mostly the short-term recommendations. So our third analysis area was what we called a boundary analysis. Phase 1 had identified a suite of different boundaries in the area. And the idea behind that is a boundary is an impediment either to crossing that facility and enforcing the use of active transportation or using along that. And a perfect example would be a freeway when it's up in fill that's hard to get across it, that type of thing. For phase 2, we kind of boiled down and looked at 3 different locations: Eastern, 95, 515, and I-15. I'll summarize those real quick. This next map actually turns, and north is now to your right, and this is Eastern. The focus area is Eastern from Fremont up to Lake Mead, and then Lake Mead over to Maine. We mapped out all the different potential crossings along there to get an idea of how much of a barrier Eastern is acting. And it's actually not too bad. What's out there, you generally have crossings, whether intersections or other locations, mostly spaced at about a 1/4 mile. We did identify a couple locations that we could put in some new protected crossings, and coincidentally, the city has actually put one of those in at Harris here recently. For the bike mode, Eastern's pretty congested, heavy area, so we did identify a parallel bike facility that uses 21st, 20th, and 19th to connect Lake Mead down to proposed improvements on Stewart. So that provides a little bit of relief from Eastern as a boundary. Second boundary location we looked at, I-515 from the Spaghetti Bowl over to Eastern. And if you're looking at the map on your screen, all the little X's there, or little crosses, those are existing crossings of 515 through a local street or some other roadway. And just from looking at it, you see there's quite a bit of infrastructure in place out there in terms of pavement and crossings to get through there. So from our point of view, 515 doesn't act as a physical barrier. However, anybody that's tried to go through that area or walk through it, it does act as a psychological barrier. It's not an inviting location to make you feel like you can cross and actively work back and forth, even though there is a small multi-use path along there. So one recommendation we made to improve that would be to use the unutilized land underneath the overpass. for some form of a linear esplanade. And those could be improvements, whether they're very passive ones like kind of parklet areas with street furniture, all the way up to things that you see in Southern California where they have skate parks built underneath these things. We recognize that there's a lot of sensitivity and we have to work back and forth with the federal partners as to what they would be comfortable with and how something like that would be implemented. We also want to recognize that the master plan update for the city of Las Vegas identified something very similar recently, so I guess we can say good minds think alike. And if we look at the suite of boundary analysis improvements, if we take out the esplanade, because that can be a lot of different things, we came up with a little bit over $6 million worth of improvements for boundaries. And the final focus area, transit amenities, again, this would be like benches, shelters, that type of thing. Phase 1 came up with a lot of different recommendations to look at, and going through the documentation, we identified 123 different stop locations to take a look at, and we applied certain criteria in terms of the number of boardings at that location, correlating to the type of amenities that should be installed. The result was 160 recommended shelters throughout the corridor and about 105 benches totaling about $3.5 million worth of transit amenity improvements. And we developed, and it's included in the final report, a prioritized list of where these improvements should start, based on the ease of implementation coupled with ridership. And so next steps, now that the final report is done, this is an informative report for local jurisdictions to take into consideration for their implementing into their overall programs, and so they could take this and go with it. To try to support that, we developed an online GIS tool to run different packaging scenarios and get an idea of how they may want to package some of these improvements and get them implemented. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Comments or questions? Commissioner?
Very helpful, I like the visuals. The school district actually has 12 new schools being planned. I don't know if any are going in that inner new core, but we should probably make sure that there's planning or when they come in for their design, but that is part of what they just approved. I think 2 rebuilds, Lincoln and one other one, and then 10 elementary sites, but I don't know where they're spaced out at. Also, the Spencer Trail, NV Energy has been good enough to finally work with us on that, so that may be another parallel access route for some of those young people getting to school. I'm thinking Orr and Crestwood and some of those along that corridor. So that's just something that maybe, I don't know if you're involved in the planning on that part, or Raymond, are you on that?
Yes, we are
Okay.
actually. So our team, just as this study was supported in the Unified Plan Work Program, we are doing a Spencer Greenway study as
Great.
well. And we did a fatal flaw analysis with National Park Service help, which engaged NV Energy to make sure that they didn't have any
Right.
concerns over it. So now we're taking the study to the next level to actually talk about how we're going to address crossings, how we're going to proceed with the planning level. To do a planning level study just like this, that'll identify some rough magnitude costs and some design alternatives.
Excellent, okay, thank you.
Brian, did you mention that some of those schools did not have sidewalks?
On the high priority walk routes to them. So the high priority walk routes look at a 2-mile walk radius and then identify those that would tend to collect the most traffic. Along those routes, some of those areas do not have sidewalks, that's correct.
You can help me out here, Commissioner. Isn't a mandatory safe route to school that the school district's responsible for sidewalks?
To my knowledge, no. Typically, and I'm going to speak to my knowledge a little bit from my previous job back in Indiana, is a lot of times schools will determine the safety of walking routes before they determine whether or not they provide bus service to that area or not. So there's hazard busing, for example. So a school may be just across the street from a neighborhood, but if that street is a very high volume, high speed arterial that doesn't have crossings, they will still bus children across that street. My understanding is it's not necessarily the school's responsibility if it's within the public right-of-way of the adjacent jurisdiction, but that the school is responsible for the sidewalks on their property. I will note too that another study that we did recently was a school siting study, which actually gets at kind of the point you're getting at, is where do we locate schools where we can provide adequate transportation options for everybody, whether that be by car, by foot, by bike, by bus. So that's one of the partnerships we had with the school district just recently to talk about where schools are sited.
Let's take a look at that, because it was my understanding, and I'll stand corrected, it's my understanding that the school district is responsible for either making the local government do it, or they are responsible for having a safe sidewalk to every school, including, a couple out in the northwest where there's no development. They have to go down and put a 3-foot wide pavement all the way to the school. So I'd like to check on that. And the only reason I bring it up, not to beat up the school district, there's enough people doing that, I don't have to, but just to make sure that if they're responsible, that they're part of this planning, and even if they have funding available for this component, that they should be part of this. Okay.
Mr. Chair, Larry, if I might.
Councilwoman.
I believe that over the years, there have been areas that did not want sidewalks. And you have a school with a sidewalk around it, which the school district built. But you could be a block away, the very next block may not have sidewalks. And that's true with Wasden Elementary, for example, which is more of a rural type area, and they did not have to put in sidewalks. The city has tried to convince many of them to put in the sidewalks, but they stand very strongly, and they would be the ones that would have to pay for it at this time. I just thought you'd like that as a bit of information.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I do think with R&Ps and that part of it, you're probably correct. But other than that, I think with the upgrades or the adoptions of the complete streets, I was under the same understanding as Commissioner Brown was, is that there has to be a mobility piece. Now down the road, and I just brought this back up again with the district recently, is in the 90s, I passed legislation to allow them to use transit bus dollars to buy public transit permits so that the kids could just hop on a local bus. And unfortunately, they piloted it in an area where they knew it would go down, and the parents didn't want to support that, so they've never brought that back up again. But I reminded them of that, because in that case, then you could actually expand their busing of the little ones from the 2-mile to maybe a 3-mile radius, let your middle school and high school kids be able to hoof it, bike it if we have safe places, and or ride public transit. So I think that conversation needs to be revisited again, because it doesn't put anybody out of work, but it actually makes it safer for the youngest ones, and then allows the others, because when I taught at Von Tobel, my kids either walked or they all rode public transit. And so why not be able to have a permit, which gives them access to, after school programming, some things along those lines too.
And in addition, what it does is it saves money for the school district. And I never could understand what the heck happened there, because it made a lot of sense, but we couldn't get the two sides together. But it would save, because sometimes it costs more to transport a child than educate a child, and that's totally ridiculous.
Okay, Raymond, Brian, you have your orders. Go meet with the school
Mr. Chairman,
district.
could I make a comment too? I think that it's a great report and a great presentation, and I think that the school district definitely has a Safe Route to School coordinator that will kind of build on some of these the study's findings. And definitely NDOT will communicate with the FHWA about those recommendations on the Interstate 515, since they definitely have a role being an interstate designation for approvals. Thank you.
Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 62 is to appoint a member and an alternate to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee of the RTC meets as needed. Current members include Chair Larry Brown and Commissioner June Kiliani. A third committee member and an alternate are needed.
And Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a nomination before you even look this way.
Please.
Okay, I would like to nominate Mayor Rod Woodbury to the Finance Committee, and your Vice Chairman of this committee, Deborah March, Councilwoman, as the alternate. And that's my motion.
That is a wonderful motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That
Thank you,
brings us
Mayor.
to your last agenda item, which is your final citizens participation period.
Second time set aside for public comment. Those wishing to speak to the board, now is your opportunity. Dorothy Barnes.
How are you all today? Dorothy Barnes, 171 West Van Wagenen, 11D, Henderson, Nevada, 89015 for the record. I'd just like to compliment you all on the new routes, 120, 121, and I thank you all for giving us some extra time on that 217 Warm Springs bus. You had a couple of earlier routes, and I get good service up in Henderson. I have the 217, the BHX, and the HDX just a few blocks from where I live. I get to all my appointments on time. And I just want to compliment you all on the great service you've been providing over the years since I've been in Las Vegas and now in Henderson, Nevada. And I just think sometimes we don't want to talk about the bad things either, but it was very sad. You know, the accident over by Texas Station recently at the intersection of Rancho and Lake Mead. I'm just hoping that pedestrians are not hit in the future at bus stops, and that they will be more courteous at the HDX. On my way here this morning, the bus driver had to actually blow his way onto the freeway and blow his way off the freeway because there's construction work, and the drivers were just in a hurry, just driving. And I mean, how can you miss a big giant bus in the broad daylight? I mean, it's just courtesy to let the drivers come onto the freeway and off the freeway. And I just hope all the drivers will be more courteous to the bus drivers. They work very hard. They're under stress, driving the bus and getting us to our destination safely. Thank you all, and thank all the drivers. And I still want to invite them to sign these promissory notes on my ticket. And I've always enjoyed coming in these meetings. All y'all look beautiful in this new year. Keep up the good work. Thumbs up.
Thank you, Dorothy. Robert Siebert.
Hi, folks.
Good morning.
If that works, or if you guys will be able to see that.
Perfect.
My name is Robert Siebert. I work for your paratransit division as one of your bus operators. What you're looking at is your 30-minute pickup window. The blue is our 5-minute early window. The orange is your 25-minute arrival window after their appointed time. Pink is 10-minute ADA non-rushed client window. This is a point in which we can tell the client, come on, you gotta hurry up, you gotta get out to the bus. And the yellow, obviously, I'm just as a point as 7:05 is the appointment. Your computer system, which you guys control the parameters of, will tell us, our manifest will give us 7:05, but the computer system will say, be there at 7 o'clock. Computer system gives us, if it's ambulatory, 1 minute. If it's a wheelchair, it'll give us about 3 minutes to pick up a client. And then once that 3 minutes is up, the computer system is automatically saying you're moving and going on to your next destination. I've tried to bring this up in drivers' forums a couple of times. It always goes back to, oh, it's a 25-minute window. I have no argument about the 25-minute window, travel time or anything like that. My thing is the computer should not be rushing that 10-minute window. That is not the computer's time, that's not my time, that's the client's time. So there should not be any travel time put in there. That is where we're coming up with running into late areas with our manifests and everything. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the on-time percentage rate and client hourly rate is causing our contractor to close routes and then overstuff routes. And it's just causing issues with us. Also, if you could maybe add Seeing Orange into this program, because you guys obviously know where your construction zones are, and you have the ability of creating slowdown zones. That would help as well, because the computer goes off, it taking about 3 minutes per mile when it adjusts its travel time. And it's just not, with the construction zones, it doesn't account for the construction zones, like Sunset and Eastern, which is a terrible construction zone. That's.
Thank you, Mr. Siebert. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board? Now is your time.
Mr. Chairman, before we move to that, could I just ask, Tina, can that be looked into? Because that makes great sense, what he's saying. And those are clients, and those are handicapped clients that we need to be sure that we treat accordingly.
Noted, and yes, we'll report back to you.
And thank you, sir, for bringing that up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jose Mendoza, President for ATU Local 1637. And I am here to inform you that we finally have a CBA with MV. Thank God. The arbitrator made his decision, and the members are happy with his decision. They got retro pay. And right now, we're okay with it, and just wanted to give a little information as to, in the future, when you make an award, while we could not say anything because we were waiting on the arbitrator's decision, we couldn't divulge what happened. But there was some admittance on part of MV that they miscalculated the numbers on their bid, and that's where we had some problems. In addition, on top of that is somebody informed them that the ATU agreed to a two-tier system, which that was a lie. That was not true. But we're okay with it now. The contract expires in August 31st of 2018. But next year we'll be dealing with Keolis. Keolis is on the third GM and the third Director of Operations. And we hope we do end up in a good side with the new GM, the Director of Operations. He's working with us right now. And let's see what happens with MV and the new CBA. But in the meantime, thank you, and again, please, next time when you make an award, listen to the contractor when they're complaining, that watch out with a low bid, because it did come out on the arbitration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Good morning, Commissioner and Commission. TK Washuta near Paradise and Twain in Las Vegas. As a consumer, I hold a right to board any one of your buses at any bus stop at my will, not at your bus driver's will. As long as I use a valid fare pass and I show it, I should not have to fear that your driver, upon his sudden impulse, would choose to refuse to open that door. On a bus that is in service, no mechanical failure, no medical emergency on board, and the driver unilaterally and willfully refused to open that door for me, my friend is in the audience, and for a third man that we don't know, on 22 December, 12:16 in the afternoon on a clear day with clear visibility. Because the RTC receives federal taxpayer funding, your driver's willful decision to refuse me service constitutes a violation of federal law. It is inconsistent with the policy that you have printed on the back of this transit guide, which says the provision of transportation services are for everyone and etc. His refusal to allow me on the bus, whether there was one behind it in 6 minutes or not, is a flagrant infringement upon my civil right to utilize public transit at will, my will, not the black bus driver's will. There is no question in my mind, but for the fact I am not one of the brothers, and my friend is not one of the brothers, and the third man is not, there is no way in the name of everything worthwhile he would have left that door closed on an in-service bus. Because this is your report, your customer service manager's report. I phoned in an immediate complaint. He told his supervisor he was running late. He acknowledged he did not pick us up at stop 2509 because he was running late and he wanted to arrive at his next time point on time. Now, to be sure, as a consumer who uses public transit Your bus driver's tardiness in adhering to his schedule is an RTC problem. It is not a consumer problem. That would not be my problem. In your customer service manager's report, the second paragraph, he capitalized the word black 6 times when it appears in the middle of a sentence. And he lowercased the word white when it does not appear in the middle of a sentence. When it does appear in the middle of a sentence, lowercased it twice. This is your customer service manager, your report. Mr. Chairman, may I be allowed to speak 2 more minutes?
No, I'll give you a little more time, but go ahead.
Okay. In my effort to pursue this, I was directed by Rodriguez to call your service provider's risk management. I'm talking about MV Trans. I've done that across, between January 12th and February 4th, I have been on the phone with 4 different people representing MV Trans. 1 in Iowa, 1 gal in Dallas 3 times, your general manager Schultzman here, and his incompetent Corey Sue in risk management, who gave me a fictional claim number and an incorrect phone number to what he thought was the legal department in Dallas, but it was a service center in Elkhorn, Iowa. 4 phone calls between January 12th and February 4th, and I cannot get a result from anyone. Now, Mr. Schultzman, I'm almost through, sir. Mr. Schultzman would have me to believe, this is what he said to me. Your claim is being handled by our head office. We're a large company, and things like this take time. I submitted a claim for damages against the RTC on the 6th of January, and there's been no response. Against RTC, not the provider, the RTC. Your claim is being handled by our head office. We're a large company. Things
TK,
like
I'm
this
going
take
to
time.
ask you, if anything else that you need, would you please submit that to the RTC General Manager and/or Council, so it's well documented, but we appreciate
Mr. Brown, I have done that. I have done that repeatedly, and it does no good.
Next speaker.
Mr. Chair, Alita Dupree here for the record, ALETA DUPREE, a female service disabled Desert Storm veteran from the Rancho Sahara section of Las Vegas. And so, again, I feel the need to speak. I am looking forward to the new changes on the 113, which will give me a good sense of consistency in my travels between downtown and Nellis Air Force Base in the Northeast Kingdom. Having experienced the frequent service on the Sahara implemented on 8 November, and that has worked well for me, I'm looking forward to this on the 113. I ask that you continue to work at acquiring the new long buses of the 15,000 series. And I know that will take time. I'm still finding on the Charleston with the double-deckers, it is hard for people like myself with disabilities to board through that very narrow bottleneck. Hence the need, I think, for all doors boarding rather than squeezing through. I have here my appropriate fare for presentation to the fare inspector, if need be, to verify that I have indeed paid for the bus. So this is something that should be studied, and I'm looking forward to it. I am looking forward to this bike share, and I've read the February 3rd press release and attempted to add my 5 proposed stops to the bike share program, but yet this wiki mapping is apparently not compatible with smartphones and tablets of the iOS variety. That's all I have. So that's impeding my ability to give you information that you're looking for. Perhaps we should have a town meeting at the Bonneville Transit Station again, where I can tell somebody my 5 proposed stops for a bike share, or perhaps I can send you an email. But this should work. So hopefully we can battle test this application, because if you're accessing it from a tablet or a smartphone, you should expect it to work from a tablet or a smartphone. So let's review this. I am pleased that in downloading my agenda for this month, that all of the items are in the PDF this time. Let's make sure that we proofread these PDFs. I have written the short bus, the 15,000 series, so I'm looking forward to those and seeing the new fare boxes. Let's continue to work with all deliberate speed to continue to make our bus service great. Thank you. My time is up.
Thank you. Next speaker. Anyone else wishing to speak to the RTC? Seeing and hearing no one, close the